Yeah, the nice thing about using the wrong magnet on a News of the Day video is by tomorrow nobody's watching it. So we're up to Edmonton and Chicago. And I delayed this one because I wanted to know for sure whether or not Crawford's going to play. And the answer is probably not. Maybe. We just don't know. It looks like probably not. So that does change things dramatically. And yes, I'm taking Edmonton. Now, the interesting thing with the Oilers is they have struggled for a long time, right back to when they wore this jersey and they had that as their secondary logo. For the Hawks, their struggles, it feels like, are starting. It feels like even though they've been out of the playoffs, this would be the third year if they lose this play-in that they've missed the playoffs, technically. And it feels like there's still a rebuild to come and or retool, whatever they're going to do, right? So the Edmonton Oilers, with their record of 37-25-9, 585 winning percentage, and they were 12th overall in the NHL when it came to winning percentage. 35 regulation or overtime wins over their last 10 games going into the break, 5-3-2. Chicago, a less successful season. They were actually selling at the deadline. So it gets kind of weird here. They're 32-30-8 with a 514 winning percentage. They were 23rd overall in terms of winning percentage. 28 regulation or overtime wins. So really, when you look at it, but they were 6-4 in their last 10 going into the break. So, and people asked yesterday, and I've seen this in the comments, why don't you start putting in how they played against each other during the regular season? Because a game that was played in October is almost a year ago at the time these games are going to get played. I could talk about how they were going into the break, but even I'm saying, look, that momentum doesn't matter. So if that momentum doesn't matter, then the record against each other, once we get into the best of 7 series in round 1, then I can start, here's the record against each other in the regular season for the best of 7, and then we can get an idea of who's playing really well. But for right now, it feels like those games were forever ago. So on the special teams front, this is all Edmonton. If we have a lot of power plays and if their penalty kill holds up, Edmonton's going to win this going away. 29.5% power play to Chicago's anemic 15.2%. So, yeah, Edmonton is ahead there. And penalty kill, 84.4% for Edmonton, 82.1% for Chicago. So, yeah, everything favors Edmonton in this one. Yeah. The thing is, again, it's Chicago. And I think with Chicago, the fear with Chicago is that, okay, but they're still the Blackhawks. They still have a lot of guys from that core that are capable of getting hot, especially a best 3 out of 5 series. You don't want to rule them out. Now, on the Oilers side, it was the year of Leon Draisaitl. 43 goals, 67 assists, 110 points. He leads in every category, which means Connor McDavid's not on the board, which is strange, isn't it? Again, I mentioned this morning in the news video that being the best player any given season doesn't necessarily mean you're the best player overall. That's more difficult to measure. I still think McDavid's the better player than Draisaitl, but boy howdy did Draisaitl have himself a season. Now on the Chicago side, it's all Patrick Kane. 33 goals, 51 assists, 84 points. So Patrick Kane leads in every statistical category on one side and Leon Draisaitl on the other, which makes sense because whoever wins the battle between those two guys, two players who can take over a game, that would help Chicago. Chicago needs for Kane to cancel out Draisaitl scoring-wise. The problem is then you have that other guy, McDavid. That's the problem. So this is why when people ask me, do you think Edmonton can go on a run? Look, they've got McDavid and they've got Draisaitl. Those are two massive pieces of talent, and you need that to win a Stanley Cup. I think if it was anybody but Edmonton, I think they would get a lot more credit. I think just the expectation is because since 1990, it's been a lot of stops and starts with Edmonton. We just kind of expect them to kind of fall apart. Now, goaltending is going to be interesting because on the Edmonton side, I would expect Koskinen, his numbers are overall better. But Smith had more wins. Smith was 19-12-6 with a .902 save percentage. Koskinen 18-13-3 with a .917 save percentage. We will probably see both of them during the best of 5 play-in. We will probably see them both in net. And especially if, say, Edmonton goes up 2-0, we may see them switch to the other goalie for game 3, whoever ends up being the starter. Again, I think Koskinen is the better goaltender. I think he's the guy they're going to try to have, going and rolling for them to go anywhere in the playoffs. But Smith is a capable goaltender himself. He did play Riddick out of that starting position in Calgary. He is capable of doing it again in Edmonton, where he takes over the starting position based on his play. Alex Chiasson, 65 games, 11 goals, 13 assists, 24 points is on the board because his season's been kind of underwhelming, comparatively speaking, with last, and yet he is capable of getting hot over 3 games out of 5. And I could see a hat trick out of Chiasson. I could see him, managing to come through and get some big points. So we'll see if that happens. Now, on the Chicago side, with the goaltending, of course, you have to mention Crawford. He was 16, 20, and 3 with a .917 save percentage. Had an up and down year, but his numbers overall very solid. Subban made 1 appearance. Didn't allow a goal in that 1 appearance for Chicago, but that's it. So for Subban, he gets part of a game, and that's it. Delia, Lankinen, nope. So for Chicago, this is kind of a worst case scenario where you've got Crawford hurt, and you've got a backup going in to start in Subban in all likelihood, who, the jury's still out on whether or not he's going to be a starting goaltender in the NHL. And I'm leaning towards probably not. Now, I like Lankinen. We'll see if Lankinen gets a shot at that job. I do think Delia has shown himself to be pretty good as well, but it does look like Subban probably gets the starts there. Alex Nylander, I put in here as the guy to kind of watch in this series on the Chicago side. 65 games, 10 goals, 16 assists, 26 points. I think he's capable of more. I don't know that he ever reaches the potential that was seen in him when Buffalo drafted him as early as they did some years back. But he's probably better than 10 goals for a full season. Now, shots per game, for and against. Both teams allow more shots than they take. Edmonton took 29.6 per game, and they allowed 32.0. But most of those shots went in for Edmonton, because look at that power play, and look at Leon Draisaitl's totals. When they get a shot on the net, they're pretty accurate with it. Now, for Edmonton, they haven't made the playoffs since 2017, when they made it to round 2, and it looked like they were on the way up. It looked like, for Edmonton, this was it. They were finally over the hump, and this was going to be great. And then, no. And that was the first time they've been in the playoffs since 2006. So if they win this play-in round and they officially make the playoffs, that is a huge step forward for the Edmonton Oilers and for fans who would rather not see Connor McDavid want out of the city. So they need to show some sort of an advancement. On the Chicago side, they take 31.8 shots per game. They allow 35.1. So you combine the fact that they allow a lot of shots, and then you have a goaltender in there who's going to make Blackhawk fans pretty nervous across the board. It's not necessarily a great combination if you want to see success in the playoffs. So, yeah, that's an issue, and they haven't made the playoffs since 2017 either. When they lost in the first round, they got swept. They were a top seed that year, too, and Nashville swept them, and that was the start of a great story for the Nashville Predators that almost nobody saw coming. I picked Chicago to go all the way to the finals that year. Whoops. So, yeah, we'll see whether or not Chicago still has some magic. But on the Edmonton side, players to watch. And again, I know there's a lot of names. People are going to be like, where's this guy on the board? I'm not going to have all the names on the board. I've done it that way before, where I just have everybody on the board and I just tell them all the stats. People are like, oh, I could have looked that up. And then now when I do it this way, I say, well, why did you talk about... Okay. Kailer Yamamoto, can he play in the playoffs the way he did in the regular season this year? I think the answer is yes. I think Yamamoto's shown that he's ready, he's good, he's fine, he's set. But against Chicago, we're going to see. Darnell Nurse, this is the first chance he's had in his career to really show he can run a blue line in a playoff environment. And it should be interesting to see how well he does. I love Nurse. I think the guy's great. And Zach Kassian. Can Zach Kassian get into a physical matchup with Chicago Blackhawks, who will be without Andrew Shaw? So that's one less agitator in there. But there will be guys trying to agitate Kassian. Can he keep his cool? Maybe score a goal here and there and get things going for him and not be a distraction to Edmonton. That's going to be key. On the Chicago side, Kirby Dach. Kirby Dach had a good rookie season. At times looked like the offense is going to be great, and I still think, yeah, he's going to be a solid forward for the Chicago Blackhawks. Does he have a big series? I don't have Brinkett on the board. I was debating about him or Strome, and I went with Dylan Strome. Because Dylan Strome had a season that wasn't exactly in the same realm as what he had last season. So he may very well be motivated in this play-in series to go, look, I didn't have a great series, great playoff or great regular season, but here I am in a play-in series, and I'm good. And here's what I really want to put on my resume, kind of thing. And then Duncan Keith. Is this Duncan Keith's last chance at maybe taking the Blackhawks on a run? And there are other members of this team, whether it's Seabrook, Taves, and Kane himself, that you can look at and say this might be the last chance for that core to maybe upset the Oilers and then just knock the whole thing on its ear by going on a bit of a run in the playoffs. So we'll see what happens. But this series should be interesting if for the fact that it looks like it could be a slaughter. It's one that looks like it could be a sweep for Edmonton. And think about that for a second. So we talk about, well, if there's no Crawford, yeah, that's going to be it for Chicago. What kind of confidence boost would it be for the Edmonton Oilers to get a sweep in the play-in round against a team with Kane, Taves, Seabrook, Keith on that line? Like, that could be a huge confidence boost leading into that next round where they could face a much more difficult foe, but have that confidence from having swept Chicago. And if they sweep them, then we can look and say, yeah, and they'll be rested as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.